And then since we're all together, I'm going to actually hide our visual so we're not distracted like if we're looking in a mirror. And we'll just have this up here. So, okay, we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet.
We're back right now?
We're back right now. We're live.
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that.
Let me make sure. Yeah, we are live right now.
Amazing.
No one's watching, but we're totally live, meaning it's recording, and so this is the actual show itself. We started. So we are actually in person today, which is a technical achievement. It's a marvel.
Quite.
I actually rearranged the studio for this, so we have a new background.
Yeah.
We actually got a lot of complaints that my bed was in the background. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, like people would comment like,
but I like seeing because there's so many things on your bed. That's cool. Like,
I guess, but people would say that like, oh, your
Wally
bed,
and Wicked.
That's all. Those are all Oscar's toys, by the way. Oops, I called Arthur the wrong name.
Oh,
those are all That's his old name actually, so it's okay. But
he has many names.
He does.
A cat of many names.
A cat of many names.
He is. It's true.
Yeah.
Very good. And anyways. Those are his toys. Like he comes here at night and he sleeps and he like really enjoys it. Oh, I didn't put this back.
Uh-oh.
You can wear that one. That's like more your style. No, just put it over here.
Oh wait, did you want this one?
No, I have. Look.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
And Emma's got.
You got yours.
Hers.
Yes, my hair's
We're all wearing our Starfleet uniforms. Right. Okay, so. We have Emma, who has been a guest on before. We did Star Trek 3 together, right? Do you remember? Yes. That was a fun episode. And by the way, just a little trivia for Starfleet Boy. It's still our most downloaded episode of...
It's so popular.
I think whenever we have a girl on the show, it just always boosts the ratings. Or a lady, I should say. I'm sorry, you're a lady.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can call me a dude.
Dude, brah. So today we are gathered together. The reason we did come together is because this is actually, in my opinion, the most important episode of Star Trek. Actually, it's a fixed point in Star Trek.
It is.
It's the most important moment in Star Trek lore, as far as I'm concerned. So we're talking about Unification Part 1, and then we'll talk about Unification Part 2 if we have time. Hopefully we do. I think we do. So who wants to do the summary today? Does anyone... Do you want to do the summary?
Throwing me out there? Jeez.
We can all help you. We can all help you. but just do part 1. Remember, don't do part 2.
Or you can do it. I'm not it.
Yeah, no. I know. The episode starts off with, you know what? Actually, to be honest, it'll be better if you do it.
Okay.
And then what I'll do is I'll chime in with things I've learned in the novelization.
Oh, that's really good. You read the whole novelization? Or you're almost through?
I'm almost through it.
Very nice. Okay. Very nice. So, okay, well, I happen to have taken notes, and now you can see how my notes look.
Oh, that's right. I've never seen your notes.
Well, I went back to pen and paper because I had a digital version, but it was too hard to look at the screen and do all that stuff. So it's just, some things just work better.
I like so the mustard colored pages.
Yeah, I know. That's actually really nice. Is that on purpose? Were they always like that? I think
it's just that it's old.
Yeah, that it's old.
I like really the way the color it becomes.
That's very cool. And
I like to smell
books.
Yes.
There's an episode of Star Trek where someone's smelling a book like that. It's very interesting. I can't remember which one though. I'm not that great. Okay, so Spock has defected. The news comes to Picard via Admiral something or other, and she basically shows him photographic evidence that Spock is on Romulus, and then she says, Captain Picard, basically you need to like figure out what the F is going on and go get Ambassador Spock, who is, by the way, he did go into the ambassadorial route there.
He did. Like
into
his
the
father.
Foreign Service, just like his father. And and so, anyways, Ambassador Spock is on Romulus, and Picard needs to retrieve him and bring him back because it's unacceptable to Starfleet. So first things first, he goes to Vulcan to see if he can glean any information from Sarek, who we saw in a previous episode. It's very nice. You have to do all these things. I'm giving the summary.
Oh,
you're like I can't do.
Where's the camera?
It's right up there. Oh, here. I will bring
okay.
back the picture so you can see what you're doing. That's a good
Okay.
idea. I hid the picture because I think it's better to have
okay.
like,
There we go.
interactiveness.
Right.
But yeah, you can do that.
So this is from the Masterpiece series,
I remember those.
the
cards.
Skybox Master series, and
Very nice.
special episodes like this one had their own unique card, and this is like you said, a turning point in the show.
It's just it's this episode, I think, and we'll not this episode, but especially the two together, and we'll discuss that maybe more. You know, this time or the next discussion of episode 2. But I think it's just like it spawns so much craziness from here on out.
Oh yeah,
The ramifications of this episode go all the way to Nemesis, and then even to the Kelvin universe. So,
that's right.
So, anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, so Picard goes to see Sarek on Vulcan, and to his surprise, Sarek is in severe decline. His health is very poor. He's in the advanced stages of his disease, which is called Bendai syndrome. Very terrible disease for Vulcans because they can no longer control their emotions. So poor Sarek is in the state. He actually sees Sarek's current wife, which I can't remember her name at the moment. Perrin, thank you. Oh, Perrin. Very good. So he actually, there's a scene, a nice scene with Perrin as well. And anyways, in his conversations with Sarek, Picard learns that Sarek's just convinced that Spock is not a defector, first of all. And then he learns that maybe there's a Romulan named Pardek, a Romulan center named Pardek, that Spock has been communicating with for over 80 years.
Since Star Trek 6.
Star Trek 6, basically.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's a part where he goes, Kittimer. They met at Kittimer.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So anyways, Pardek and Spock have been speaking for all this time, and they've kind of just been entertaining the notions of some kind of dialogue between Vulcans and Romulans, who long ago were one people and separated. And so they're hopeful that maybe these, that somehow there could be some kind of, relationship between Vulcans and Romulans and change the dynamic as it stands. Anyways, so Picard gets the clues he needs to, and then sadly, Sarek can no longer really maintain himself. He kind of bounces out of his frenzy, and then, when Spock is brought up, and then afterwards, as the conversation's dwindling down, Sarek unfortunately goes back into his state, and Picard even helps him to do the long and prosperous sign. It's a very emotional, poignant scene. And so then when he gets back to the Enterprise with the help of the crew, they devise a plan to go to Romulus, and Picard and Data are going to disguise themselves as Romulans, which we have the figures for that here, I guess. And then the crew also are they're kind of trying to figure out, I forgot to mention, they found like parts of a ship, and it looks like a Vulcan ship. So Geordi and some of the other crew are trying to figure out that mystery. It's like, where did this Vulcan ship come from? So, and also Picard requests help from Gowron. But apparently, Chancellor Gowron is like our current president and is trying to rewrite Klingon history. And
this is not Gowron.
I think Donald Trump got the idea for fake news from Gowron, by the way.
Yeah, definitely, right? For sure.
So Star Trek did it first. So another reason this episode is poignant. Anyways, there's an exquisite scene where Gowron's basically not giving Picard the time of day. So Picard's like, well, get me so and so, and Worf is only able to procure like a lower level clerk at the Klingon High Council. And so Picard basically says, please let Gowron know that we would be very grateful for his help. And should he not be able to help, I'm sure there are other Klingons who would help us. And then let him know that they would have our gratitude. Instead,
that's a great scene.
It is a great scene.
Yeah.
And by the way, we do get the full Picard in this episode.
We get the full Picard.
And I think we get the full everyone. Like everyone gives their full. Well, okay, we'll talk about that. Anyways, so Gowron sends a ship. Picard and Data are like fitted for their prosthetics. They go aboard the Klingon ship. They're heading towards Romulus. The Enterprise is on its way to a surplus depot. When they get to the surplus depot, there's an amusing scene with a Zakdorn, the quartermaster. And then they discover that there's been a ship that's been pretending to be this Vulcan ship and that's docked. Oh, good. Our special guest is calling. Let's see if we can get him on FaceTime audio. Hold on a second. Hello. Oh, hi, Mark. We're in the middle of the show, actually. So you've just called at a perfect time. Do you want to be phone or do you want to be FaceTime?
I'll do FaceTime.
All right, hang on. We're gonna switch you to FaceTime here. We're still giving the summary. So we're gonna put him right up to the mic so that we can record him kind of separately here.
I thought you were doing it on Google Hangout.
Yeah, but we're live and in person. This is the beauty of a live show, is that you have these conversations. We're live and in person right now, so hold on. Here we go. We're connecting. Why do we just see blue?
I don't know. I can't explain it.
So that's weird.
Can he join us on Google Hangouts?
No, because then the audio recording would fail.
Oh, he doesn't have the whole audio thing like I do? Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't have that going.
Gotcha.
On. Okay, hold on. We're being reestablished here. Oh, whoa, what just happened? There we go. All right, so see, we're live.
Hello.
Hello. And now we have our special guest who's been on before, Ramon. Hello.
I'm the unspecial guest.
You are not unspecial.
No.
All right, we're gonna put you on this microphone stand here. And
so he's just gonna face the microphone stand?
Yeah. Hang on. Wait a second. We gotta figure out how to do this. All right, I'm gonna put you on this microphone stand like this.
That's funny.
Wait a second. There's got to be a way. Anyways, can you continue the?
Do you want me to hold?
Yes. If you'll hold Moni for a second.
Okay,
hold him close.
I'm
to the
holding
microphone.
you. So and then.
All right, so we're almost finished. We're doing Unification Part 1, by the way, and we're almost finished with the summary. So, where was I? Oh yeah. So.
Summarizing the episode.
What's that?
You're summarizing the episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So you came just in time.
Just in time. So we're at the part where Picard and Data go off on the Klingon ship that Gowron lends them, and then Data and and then the rest of the crew go to the depot and they meet the Zakdorn quartermaster. And I'm gonna figure it out. We'll figure it out when we stop with the summary, because then you guys can start talking about it.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyways, so then there's a delightful scene where there's a scene where they kind of hide, and then I know the Zakdorn scene's awesome. We'll talk about that, don't worry. And so they hide in the depot to see if they can expose the ship that's been stealing all the supplies, and sure enough they do, but unfortunately, because the ship was so heavily armed, a few short phaser blasts from the Enterprise cause it to destruct. But then they get a clue that the ship has something to do with a bar.
Well, that's the second episode.
Yeah, but they get the clue in this one.
Yes, they do. Right.
So they get the clue.
They don't go to the bar until.
So they have to go to this like kind of weird deep space bar to meet with someone.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then it's fine. So, anyways, Picard and Data.
Right.
Picard and Data make it to Romulus. They're all dressed up as Romulans. There's a cute scene where before that on the Klingon ship where Picard and Data are hanging out, and Picard's trying to sleep, and Data doesn't let him. He just stares at him. No, I know. Oh, okay. you're so interrupting my summary here. You're constantly interrupting. Anyways, what did I just drop? Oh well, it's fine. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so they go to the planet. Right. They're on Romulus, and then they land in this village where Pardek is supposedly every like third day or something like that. It's like his home village. And lo and behold, they see Pardek, but then they're arrested by Romulans, taken into these caves, and they're like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? And then they find out that Pardek is actually behind the arrest, and that the guards are friendly. And then Picard says, we are here to recover Ambassador Spock, and then you hear Indeed. Yes, exactly. And then you see Spock, and that's the end of the episode. So
and he goes, "You have found him."
Indeed, yes.
And he has some really great shoulder pads.
He does have great shoulder pads.
Romulans are known for their
Romulans.
they're known for their shoulder pads.
Yep.
Here is.
So I'm trying to place you somewhere.
Is
I think he
Discord
should go
connection
here.
on that or your side?
What's that?
I don't see you guys.
You don't see our
Oh.
video feed? We're gonna call you back. Hold on. All right, we're gonna call Moni back.
Okay, so
Right, so
while
good.
you're doing that, I shall chime in, and I read the novelization, and obviously novelizations are not entirely canon,
Right.
but I think they offer interesting insights. And in this case, the novelization was written by Jerry Taylor, who was the supervising producer at the time of the episode. And as I was reading, I made a number of notes. Well, I didn't even make notes. I just documented pages. And the Admiral at the very beginning, she has like a whole relationship with Picard.
What do you mean?
According to the book, like they knew each other way back, and yeah, even some of that too. Maybe.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it's funny because when you see the scene, you're like, I don't see any of that happening on the screen. But apparently she has...
That's just Jerry Taylor.
That's just Jerry... Well, but I mean, it's interesting. But
it wasn't in the episode. I didn't see any of that.
But I mean, they were old friends.
Right. Yeah,
you know?
that I could...
But she... apparently it starts off with her beaming aboard the Enterprise. And she knew O'Brien.
Oh, wow.
So it adds... it adds some character there. And she was enjoying greatly the idea of keeping Picard in the dark until that dramatic moment when she shows him the video of Spock.
Oh.
And so
she wanted Picard to like feel like what's going on?
What the audience
really
was feeling. Well, like what is this? What's going on?
Why would an admiral?
Because she likes toying with him because they're old friends.
Oh, they're old friends.
Right.
But it seems like she's not taking this seriously. Like I feel like it's like in the novelization I'm saying, like on the show it doesn't feel that way. But in the novelization, it sounds like she's making light of the situation.
Not light, but just she is enjoying taunting Picard a little bit, which is totally not in the scene.
Do you agree with that, Emma?
No opinion.
So
I already don't like this novelization.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
That is kind of a weird.
And
thing.
they add stuff about Spock and Perrin.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't really realize until I read it in the novelization. I know they say it in the show that it was Sarek and Spock had their falling out over the Cardassian. They say over the Cardassian War.
Oh, they don't say that on the show.
No, they do say it on the show.
No, they don't.
I'm pretty sure they do.
I'm sure they don't. I've watched it like 17 times.
They mentioned that that Spock attacked on the Cardassian War.
Okay,
yes.
I believe you.
But the novelization says it goes kind of more into it. And one of the digital props that I was going to use, but I don't have here, is it was actually there's a comic book that goes into it, which is worth reading. I read it during the week, and it actually dramatizes what happened between Sarek and Spock. Spock was kind of, we should give these Cardassians a chance. And Sarek, you're being closed-minded again. And Sarek is like, oh, Spock, you're too trusting. We don't know everything about these Cardassians. Of course, Sarek turns out to be right. But there is a scene where Spock confronts Sarek, and it is in a public hearing. And Perrin had just married Sarek.
Oh, Perrin does talk about that, I think.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm fiercely protective of my husband. Or something
right.
Like
And it goes into how they met, and the comic book throws in McCoy. McCoy was at the wedding. Spock was not. I mean, again, this is not, you know, this is, I mean, we all have our headcanons, as they say.
Right.
I liked the comic book. I thought it was very good. And
You mean the novel?
well, this is the comic book
that you were just talking
but
about.
the novel references that event.
Interesting.
So it's kind of, I guess you could say it starts off in the novelization, then you can read more about it in the. Hey.
Apple is feeling me.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So we just finished recapping the novelization, and Emma and I don't like it, but
I'm not done recapping the novelization.
I saw you posted that on Goodreads or something. Yeah.
Oh, you saw he posted on Goodreads, Humbert?
Oh yes. Yeah, I'm not done yet though, but I'm most of it. And I was just saying that novelization goes into a little bit about Perrin and Spock and how she felt that Spock kind of slighted her just from the beginning, and she just never got close to Spock. And if you watch the episode, Spock is a bit of a jerk. Like you get a sense that, you know, like you can totally see him dissing Perry, like saying, "You're not Amanda," you know.
One has to wonder how many human wives since the original series.
Right, as I mean,
like, this made me wife like 7
I mean, let alone like half brothers and stuff now. You know, there's Cybok, and then there's a Vulcan princess we never hear about,
and then Michael Burnham also.
And let's not even go there.
I love Michael Burnham.
I don't know if Discovery is canon yet, but okay.
Unfortunately, it's being shoved down your throat. It is canon. You have no choice.
I don't know.
You have no choice in it. It's
I'm not
dictated
sure.
by Star
Let's wait
Trek.
to see if Viacom and CBS merge.
Right,
I'm waiting for that.
Well,
I'm waiting for that merge to see if it happens.
All right. Well, as far as we can tell, Discovery's canon. So, they promise an explanation for all the wacky shit that's going on.
Okay.
So,
I'll say one more thing, and then I'll shut up about the novelization. It is worth reading. Like I said, it was Jerry Taylor who wrote it, who was one of the producers at the time. And you're totally off camera.
It's okay.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
And she throws in extra character into the novel, who is kind of like an ensign and working in security and works with Riker it's like a whole subplot that is not at all in. Oh, that's nice. They're reconciling.
Hold on, we gotta show the audience. So
we have props.
Spock and Spock and Sarek, father and son. If they could actually express themselves, they would be hugging. It's true. Anyways, go on with your assessment of the novel.
I think it's worth. I really, if you love the episode as much as I do, I think novelization is worth a read. You get extra insight into Picard, into. I think the only character you don't really get much insight into is Spock. They kind of keep Spock.
Well, yeah, because he's like Mickey Mouse. You got to keep him
right.
You got to keep him as
Mickey
a mystery.
Mouse
well,
a mystery.
Well, okay. Disney has a policy of not putting Mickey Mouse in a lot of things because they want to keep him.
I didn't know this.
Special, yeah. That's why. And Kermit.
So we never know what Mickey Mouse thinks.
Or we just don't see him often because we don't want to Mickey's got to be. There's got to be that magic about the mouse, And so it's like the same with. That's why you don't see Spock.
Spock is like Mickey Mouse.
Spock is
you heard it here first.
But you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
What was I gonna ask you? Oh no, I just had one thing to say about the novelization, which is to give a shout out to Trekkie Rob, who runs the Star Trek Book Club. And Rob has been on the show, and we'll have him on again. But he runs the Star Trek Book Club, which is pretty cool.
I wonder if they've read this.
I'm sure they have. In fact, Rob, if you're listening to this by any chance, please comment in the comment section or send a message and let us know what you think of the Unification novel if you've read it before. Anyway, so that was the special shout out to one of those.
That was well shouted out.
And so we're no longer the Starfleet Boy Regulars. They're no longer. It's the team now.
Yes, the team.
Yes. Starfleet Boy team.
We're part of a team.
We're the team.
We're part of the team.
So you're all part of the team. It's a good team. Right. It's a good team. All right, team. Speaking of team, who wants to? Do you have any particular things about the episode you want to comment on or talk about? Was there anything you noticed?
I mean, it's I think the standout. Am I speaking too low?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think this one of the standout scenes in the episode is obviously Sarek.
Yeah.
And the scenes with him, and obviously it's the last time we see Mark Leonard in the role, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
I think he dies shortly after this. We didn't go over the dedication at the beginning of this episode to Gene Roddenberry.
Right, he had just passed away.
Also, Gene Roddenberry just passed away, and so this episode marks that
right,
in a sense by doing the dedication in the beginning. And I like that they played the fanfare. The main Star Trek theme in the beginning. It was very emotional.
Presumably the episode was filmed long before he died, but it's just kind of interesting that the timing worked out that way.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
Yeah.
And with Sarek, you're right. It's like, so yeah, I mean, like we do also off camera learn that Sarek dies in this episode. I don't think I said that in the summary, but so that's pretty, that's pretty crazy too. So yeah, there was a lot of weird,
it was an emotional
time, but I remember when we saw it, it was an emotional time too, because Star Trek 6 had just come out like the year before or that year. Maybe.
No, wait a minute. That's what I don't remember. I don't recall exactly.
It is 100% yes, post Star Trek 6, because in Unification Part 2, Spock makes a direct reference to Star Trek 6 saying, I put another crew of the Enterprise.
Right, but wasn't that meant to promote Star Trek 6?
Oh, you think this came out? You think
I don't know. What do you?
I don't remember. It's all a blur to me. But I know it's the same year, at least at the very least.
Right. It is the same year, but I believe what they did is that they had filmed Star Trek 6, and I don't remember if this is true or not. My impression is that they had filmed Star Trek. They knew they were going into Star Trek 6. They were done filming it, and they wanted to tie it in somehow with Star Trek Next Generation, of course. And they only had, they filmed episode 2 of Unification first, as you said, because of the availability of Leonard Nimoy.
Okay.
So this episode that we're talking about right now was actually filmed after the Leonard Nimoy part.
I guess
it was to time it because they wanted. Well, yeah, right. He's barely. Yeah, he. I guess Luke pulls a Spock in Force Awakens, right? We can say that, right?
That's in my notes.
That's in your notes. I know. Yeah.
The episode is exactly like Force Awakens. I think Ryan Johnson. I'm going to have to expose you here, because in fact, the whole episode is just like they're on this search. They're looking for Spock. And it appears.
Were you
for Spock?
They need to search for Spock.
It is like the search for Spock part 2.
Spock's
actually,
always getting lost.
It is. So it's very appropriate that Emma's on
Silly
this episode
Spock.
because she was also on the search for Spock episode. So it seems like you're always searching for Spock.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first saw it? This Unification Part 1. How disappointed were you when you got to the end of the episode? Well, you're getting to the end of the episode because the hour's ending, and you're like, I haven't seen Spock yet.
I wasn't. No. I don't remember having those feelings.
Really?
And I don't know. No, I don't think I was disappointed. I think I was like, oh, like what's gonna happen in the next episode? And I also think it's like actually good that they did it this way, because you get, we're not talking about Part 2 yet, but going head to head with Leonard Nimoy as an actor and as just the icon that he is. The audience, I think, really needs to see Picard as like in his, as I said earlier, in the full Picard, and we get really impressive performances by Patrick Stewart. So then later when they go head to head, you totally buy it, because you're like, oh yeah, you're reminded in this episode how awesome Picard is, and when he goes head to head with Spock later on, there's a payoff, like in a sense, because you're like, oh yeah, Picard can hold his own. I mean, he even again, not to go right into episode 2 here, but he even says he holds his ground. He's like, stop comparing me to your father. I'm speaking with my own voice, like or whatever.
Right.
It's like
you're getting a little ahead of yourself in the episode 2.
I know. Sorry.
I know. We have to keep him in line.
I guess that's why I wasn't like, I don't remember being disappointed. I just remember being like, oh, cool. And like, I think the anticipation was driving me crazy of what's going to happen in Part 2. But I think also in a way it's really nice to have like one episode dedicated to Sarek in a sense, because like the whole episode kind of has Sarek looming behind it, and we learn of his death and everything like that. And then that way the other episode can focus on Spock. The whole thing is very cinematic, actually. This whole episode, I think, like, they really poured a lot of attention and love.
Yeah,
and,
they did.
And like, you know, budget and everything into it. And especially this one and the next one. So,
yeah. This episode, I mean, it's like a greatest hits of everything classic Star Trek, even down to having Spock. But of course, if you think about it, it's got Romulans, it's got Klingons, it's
the Federation, like new aliens later on.
But has the quintessential Star Trek bar scene.
It has exactly.
Well, that comes later, but
is that? Oh, that's right. That's the second episode, right? Yeah. But I mean, it's really giving everybody. It's really giving Trek fans everything that they would expect, and you know, they probably expected people to tune into this episode who maybe hadn't tuned in to every single episode of Next Generation up until now, and this was really something. This was almost like an olive branch out to the fans. I mean, this is at the time that it aired. Like, look, for you who still hold a grudge against Next Generation for any reason, look, we have Spock, and look at how much like the original Trek we are. We've got Klingons, we've got Romulans.
It does really, yeah, I agree with you that this episode does really like kind of like solidify the Next Generation in the legend and the lore and the canon of Star Trek in a way that, and then we get more with Scotty later on. But
right. But
not only that, you have Mark Leonard who who played the first Romulan.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
Right,
100%.
Right. He did the whole thing. He did the Klingons,
unification of Romulans and Vulcans.
That's true. He is the unification.
And an interesting little tidbit, there's a lot of fan theories that go off of how basically how Sela kind of looks like like the whole weird thing of like some actors playing different roles, you know. They were saying that there is a Romulan that Romulans look like their cousins, like almost like exactly like, so it was like a mirror thing, but they didn't, I don't think it like ever it became canon, but it was like something that was discussed.
That's become canon at all.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, the episode it's I mean, I'll just say it's a 10. I mean, I know we're early for the ratings, but for me it's a 10. And
Hubbard has given his rating already, folks.
Yeah, and
he can hold himself back.
No, I mean, when it's a 10, I just come out and say, hey, this is a 10.
Do you think this is a perfect episode? Can you find any flaws?
There's flaws.
So what would do you want to have like a little discussion about what you can think of as a flaw in this episode?
Well, I mean, for me, the flaws mainly come with, I mean, obviously I've seen this like 100 times, probably this episode, not 100 times, but I've seen it many, many times. I mean, I've purchased it on Blu-ray. I used to have it on tape and and I would go to it because that was for the longest time. I mean, up until the recent J.J. Abrams Star Trek, this was the last time we saw Spock.
Right.
And for characters like this, like you want to see them, the latest iteration of them. It's like on Doctor Who, like you want that multi-doctor thing because you want to see what are they like now,
Right.
And this episode, the two episodes had that nostalgia for me. And but in terms of just pure entertainment value, I think the investigation of the Vulcan ship and the whole thing that they're trying to figure out, well, what's going on with this ship? I think that subplot is not explained as well. It's not as interesting until really part two, but also that ship that comes out of nowhere that can go toe to toe with the Enterprise, and it's a much smaller ship. We don't know who,
but it's heavily armed.
I know, but like who? What is like? I remember even at the time thinking, who owns this ship that they can go up against a Galaxy class starship with no problems.
Completely unexplained. Yeah.
It was completely unexplained, and
it is not a Romulan warbird.
No, it's not. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're kind of puny compared to the D. What's going on? Like, it just didn't. That whole little subplot, I think, is kind of dicey and calls attention to itself.
What I like about it is that it suggests this, like, so this is the first time on TNG that we kind of, what I liked about that scene, I do agree that it, you know, it's unexplained or whatever, but what I did like about that scene is that the idea of a surplus depot, you have this post,
yeah, that's cool.
You have the post Wolf 359, you can see there's like tons of like destroyed Federation ships or Starfleet ships in this.
This is not post Wolf 359.
It is.
Is it? Yeah. Oh, yes, it is. You're right. You're right. You're right.
And so you have like a surplus depot, and you know that it's a salvage depot basically, and the Zakdoran is responsible for salvaging whatever technology. Right. So you see though that stuff's being stolen. So it's very possible that the Yamato or the, you know, whatever other sister galaxy class ship out there has been, you know, obviously this is not like a high security area. There's not a lot of resources. It should be, but they're like, hey, it's in the middle of Federation space. Who's going to come and do anything to this? So, but, you know, obviously the Federation's a little naive when it comes to things like this, but
apparently,
but regardless, you know, I think that it is possible that a ship could have equivalent armament to the Enterprise, because these people have been stealing from this surplus depot. And so there's like, it's a modified ship. And obviously you can tell that their modifications are done in a rush. They're half-assed. They're not like that great. Because they exploded when
two short phaser bursts.
You know, we always wonder if Worf is like really adjusting those phasers.
You think Worf really didn't target?
I don't know if he's a little
target only the engines, and Worf is like, fuck that.
You never know.
Blowing this sucker up.
You know, so who knows? You know, he gets a little.
I never really thought of that.
Yeah, but I mean, I always wondered that.
I like that theory.
Emma, would you hand us the Enterprise D for a moment? I have to show. We're showing one every episode, so here we go. I'm going to take it out of its birth here. So we happen to have the Enterprise D. This is from Eagle Moss. It's a new collection. Well, it's not a new collection. They've been around for a while, but this is the XL version of the Enterprise D. So just want, since we're talking about the Enterprise and its armament, I thought it would be a good time to show it. And Moni's getting like that awesome shot that you always see. I'll do it for the audience as well. Here we go.
Now I'm curious. I'm going to ask everyone. Well, of course, I know when the first time you saw this episode was, we both saw. Yeah, and it aired.
Right.
Now, when was the first time you saw the episode? Like how old were you?
The first time I saw it was when it was airing on the predecessor to Spike network for men.
Do you remember that Star Trek was on the Spike network?
That's so weird. That's true.
2002, I guess. 2002.
Right. That's right.
Because that was the first time I had access to the whole series. But I had known about the episode. I knew it was the one that had Spock, and so it had the special outsized significance to
right.
Not necessarily because of the quality of the storyline or anything, but just because Spock and Sarek are in it.
Right.
But and it involved Romulans, which were, you know, all my favorite things. So
yes, we're part of the Romulan fan club here. Yes.
Yeah. You know, they're the like. They were the I don't remember from the sequence from the original series, but they're the first like real enemy of the Federation that we'd encounter that's like significant and, you know, awesome. So
right. Oh, I think I'm just there. You go. Okay.
There you go. I agree with you. Humbert and I have had this debate throughout the whole of our adventures, talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation so far, where I think the Romulans actually fulfill a great. They kind of like are satisfying as far as a adversary to the Federation or antagonists here. But he says, and I also see this, I'm starting to see it more, is that like they kind of are building up to this war, and we don't really ever see that happen. So nothing ever really becomes of the Romulans in terms of like a war or anything like that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's like a Wagner symphony.
Great analogy.
There's all
there.
this pent up potential, but we never see the war. We only hear about the war from the pre-Federation days or early Federation days. I'm not sure if it was pre-founding or not.
It is true that Wagner does not always deliver a climax. it is true. Or you have to wait like 3 operas later to get it. You know, like,
by then you've forgotten, like, why am I here?
No, just kidding.
And then, we have, Nemesis was such a wasted opportunity, but we can talk about that another time.
That's going to be a long conversation, Nemesis. Yeah. When was the first time did you see it with me? Was that the first time?
Yeah,
did you know the episode existed?
No, I haven't seen that much of Next Generation, honestly.
Okay.
When you did see Spock in this episode, I know you're a big fan of Spock. Like, did it make you feel like, oh, I want to watch more of Next Generation, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a cool way to introduce like maybe original fans to the characters in Next Generation and see more of them.
Yeah, I remember because we were playing the second part. I guess it was last night. Just leaving the TV on, and your dad told me.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I didn't know Picard met Spock."
Yeah.
And your dad was kind of watching it.
Yeah. No, he pretty much watched it.
He pretty much watched it. I wasn't paying attention.
I kind of left the room, but yeah, he continued to watch it.
Right.
I think he's just a fan of the original show. I think he said the other day, like, I really just watched the original show. Like, there's so many. I'm like, they're good. You just gotta. I think you have to focus on like one at a time, really, because I know there's one channel now they show like, all 4 or 5 Star Trek shows.
Heroes and
like
Icons.
in a row, and it's it gets kind of mumbled when you've never like seen all the shows. So.
Right, because it's like 10 hours of Trek.
Yeah.
The fun thing is that Star Trek: The Next Generation, I think Star Trek Voyager, Enterprise, and the original series, you can kind of watch them out of sequence, and it doesn't make a huge difference. Like an episode like this, you do get a bigger payoff if you've seen it in sequence. So like for those of us that had watched all the original series movies, and then followed the Next Generation from the beginning, this was delightful in many ways because you're like, oh my gosh, this totally explains this and this totally explains that, and there's like there's just like all kinds of neat little like I said, that's why I consider these 2 episodes to be like a fixed point in Star Trek history, because it ties so much in together, and then it's referenced over and over again, because in the Kelvin Star Treks, Spock is still helping the Romulans. So like the whole reason like he creates the red matter or whatever and like is trying to like help the Romulans is because it's assumed that he's been on Romulus this whole time living as a Romulan. And so do we know anything about that?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because Scott did a really great little video on canon.
Scott?
That's
Sean.
Sean
did it. Yes.
Sean. Sorry. Sean.
Yes. What about it?
And it's on canon, and what was considered canon, what wasn't canon. And I didn't know that there was actually a statement on, I think it was StarTrek.com. I wish he was here. He'd explain it really well. But StarTrek.com had a statement about what was canon. And it was like, obviously the shows, the movies, but then they threw in like two novels and something or other. And I'm like, really? And what wasn't included was the graphic novel that you're referring to. Because all that stuff about the red matter and the Romulans, that's from that graphic novel.
No, but I'm saying it's assumed anyways. Like in the garb even that he's wearing in the Kelvin timeline, I'm saying you can make those assumptions.
Right, but it's finalized in.
No, but I'm just saying, like, forget the even without knowing all that about how Geordi helped to create that ship and all that stuff, just seeing Spock and like the fact that he even says he's like the Romulan son, was like he's talking about in the movie, he's talking about
Right.
how he's trying to help the Romulans.
Right.
So it begs the question,
because he was there.
right? It begs the question: has he been maintaining this
On
relationship
Romulus all
on
this time.
Romulus all this time? So
Right.
yeah, that's what I
Right.
was saying. I didn't mean like
Right.
no. I do realize that there is like a canonical, you know, there's more deeper stuff in
Yeah.
the novel in those
In the graphic
comics.
novel.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which is a cool story. Now let me ask you, what do you? Because for so long, and if you can get him back, that'd be great. Because I'd like to know his.
It's like Star Trek 4. He's about to go into time warp.
Okay. Because for the longest time, unification was the endpoint for Spock.
Yes.
For us.
Yes.
Because Star Trek 6 was it for the original crew.
So,
there we go.
So we're just talking about how unification used to be the last time you see Spock.
Right. I want to know what everybody thinks about, for so long, this was the endpoint for Spock. This was the latest we'll ever see Spock. There's Star Trek 6. Yeah. And
I read that novel.
Suddenly, we get the treat in 2009 that we get one more bit of Spock. and I was just curious to know, what do you all think of like, were you more comfortable with unification being the end of, like, the end point for Spock, or do you like the fact that we got a little bit more of Spock in
I feel
2009
like,
Star Trek? Which end point do you prefer?
For me, I love the way Spock is integrated into 2009 Star Trek, and as a matter of fact, it's what makes the movie. Like, the movie could have been a make or break situation for me, but to me, it's so clever how Spock is kind of like we the audience are Spock. Like, we have basically been transferred into this alternate timeline,
right.
And now we're seeing like this whole, like, basically Spock's like, all this stuff that I went through, it's all different now, like,
Right.
And so it's interesting, and he's trying to stay out of the way, and he's also like trying, it's just, and then the story is so much about that, our Spock, because Vulcan being destroyed, while it's poignant to the young Spock, it's even more poignant to the older Spock, because it's his fault directly. Like, he's guilty, like he feels immense guilt because Nero blames him, and it's like that, that whole thing happened. So it's a pretty crazy thing, and I think it's wonderful that, like, you do have one character that has gone through basically every era and every iteration of Star Trek, except for Star Trek Discovery, which is an argument as to why, like, Star Trek Discovery might not be canon. But anyways, it doesn't have Spock in it too. If you see, like, we're about to get more Spock. If you saw the trailer for Star Trek Discovery, which, by the way,
hologram
Spock.
They actually did say there was Adam Nimoy gave the okay. He said it would be cool if they did something where they
like a CGI
CG Spock, like put his face on somebody else's body.
Wow. What would you think of that, Moni?
I don't know if I
would you tolerate like, did you like the way did you guys like the way Tarkin
no, that was fine.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't want a movie with CG Spock, but like for a cameo, yeah, it's fine.
I would be totally happy with Zachary Quinto playing the role also, because I think
he's too old for it.
No, he's too. He's younger. He's young enough to be in this era. Actually.
Is he?
Yeah.
Leonard is 40 when he played Spock the first time, so that Quinto's that old, yeah.
So Star Trek Discovery takes place. We're 7 years from Kirk getting the Enterprise.
Well,
hang on. So Zachary Quinto would be perfect, because he would play Spock at that age. Not only that, there's kind of like Leonard Nimoy kind of passed the torch to him as far as the characters
in the movies.
Well, but in real life, they work together. So he's kind of an apprentice of Nimoy, if you will. As far as the character is concerned, Zachary Quinto is the most invested.
Oh well, yeah, I
like,
agree that he is
investiture,
Spock right now.
Like, he is the Spock, right?
But
so
I don't know
think
about that.
I think that would tie Discovery into a weird. It would somehow, in a weird way, tie Discovery into the rest
back
of
to the episode that we're talking about.
We're straying a little bit off topic.
Yeah, it's true. We often do that on Starfleet.
Back to the episode. Well, what was I going to ask?
Do you think they treated the death of Sarek correctly?
Oh yeah.
It's very, I think though, it's very heart-wrenching to see the Vulcan form of dementia, basically, because all of these things that they hold dear, their discipline, like their restriction of their control over emotion, it like ceases to exist, and he's like has these spasms of passion. He's basically Romulan.
Right, exactly, and it's just torture. Yeah, it's torturous to watch. Yeah, and it's torture for them. You know.
But I thought that the scene, I thought the farewell between him and Picard was beautiful. He's trying to assist him doing the hand gesture. So for me, it was a fitting send off.
We get a little glimpse into a youthful, a young, perhaps a teenage Spock or early adolescent Spock, when Sarek starts talking about how Spock would go into the mountains, and stuff like that. And is that in the novelization? Is that
actually
expanded?
The novelization goes a little bit further and ties it in with Picard? And Picard says that he has a moment when he's on the Klingon ship, and he's reflecting on what Sarek had said. You know, he just comes into his mind because of the mind meld and all that, and he's thinking about Sarek, and he remembers how he would escape into his grandmama's closet to read. And isn't that the lady that we see?
Mamon.
Oh,
yes.
Mamon,
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
That's his grandmother, right?
Yes, that's his grandmother.
And so he went into his grandmother's closet to read, and his father would be calling for him to come out and, pick the grapes. Where are you, Jean-Luc? Pick the grapes. We need to pick grapes. And he's in his grandmother's closet reading. And
what's that?
Hmm?
And don't use any of your technology to do any of this.
Don't use use your hands. Right. So
So Picard was in the closet.
Picard was in she's apparently it was like a really large closet and it had a window.
Oh wow.
So it had a
so it's like the one in ET.
Right. It's like something like that. Yeah. Right. And it's like this idyllic place to read.
It's a walk-in.
Grandma
had a walk-in closet.
Right. Well, all those nice clothes that she would
true.
have.
That's true.
She was a very classy lady.
She was very classy.
Yeah.
And oddly, she would wear Victorian style clothing
in the 23rd century. She was a very classy lady, right? Victorian clothes, yes. Vintage clothes.
Yeah, I guess so. It's true.
So she was a steampunk cosplayer.
Yeah, it's
back in the day. And so he makes the connection how, Picard. I know in the episode Family, there's a whole thing about him between him and his brother. But the novelization goes a little bit further and say that, there was a bit of tension between Picard and the father as well. Because the father, I guess the father preferred the brother because the brother respected the old ways. And Picard always had his eyes to space, to moving away from Earth.
Right, very similar to Spock.
Which is similar to Spock, right.
Into that in Family because at the dinner table, the discussion, they talk about how the argument over the replicator was like an epic.
Right.
Friends.
Exactly.
So
that was the last time we had Moni on the show.
Clone of the father.
That's right.
And that was the last time we had you on the show. It was on your birthday.
That's right.
So, okay, I guess we're about to wrap up the discussion for part 1, unless there's anything else you guys could think of.
Would you care to?
Anything else?
No.
Did you note? Was there anything of note in episode 1, Moni?
I mean, this could be a good segue in episode 2, the Unification part 2 anyway, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the separation, the length of time that has passed since separation between the Romulans and Vulcans.
That's a really good thing. I did actually have that as a note for my episode 2.
Yeah, because it's like the time scale we're dealing with is pretty large. So I consulted the Denise Okuda Star Trek encyclopedia that I have.
Nice. Oh, show it. Can you show it to the audience?
I love primary sources.
All right, there it is.
Oh my gosh, I have that.
This is the 1999 edition, so I'm dating myself here.
It's all right. I have that one too.
Anyway, so according to this, the Romulans separated from the Vulcans in the era of pre-Sarek or during the Sarek, when Sarek was propounding the Vulcan philosophy 2,000 years before this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's 2,000. We're talking 2,000 years before, so basically like the distance between now and ancient Rome.
Oh, okay.
So Spock is very ambitious, to say the least. I can overcome 2,000 years of.
Well, that's actually a great way to tie up this episode. But before we do tie it up, and then we're going to talk more about that in our second discussion, let's all go around and give our ratings. We already know Humber gives it a 10. So I am actually, since you already gave your rating, I'm going to one-up you and give this episode an unrateable.
What does that even mean?
It means that there is no rating that can adequately describe.
No, it's a 10. Can't you just say it's a 10? I would even accept an 11.
Fine, an 11. This episode's an 11, but the next one is unrateable. Anyways, Ramon, Moni.
I give it. I have to give it an unrated.
What?
That's 2 of us. Wait,
you can't give it a rating?
Wait, say that again.
All right.
And part 2 in terms of like land with the Vulcan, which I can view and have some issues with.
Wait, you totally broke.
You totally broke up.
You have to say your whole last justification there again because you totally broke up. Try again.
Okay, so I have to spend the rating Unification 1 and 2 as a whole.
Oh, he wants to give a rating as a whole. For 1 and 2, he feels like they are tied in, so that's why they're unrateable.
Do you feel that way too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Let's try to get him back.
Well,
but anyway, so
for the purposes of the show proper, the correct answer is that it is a 10. And the 2 of you want to divert and give it a whole.
The 3 of us, actually. The 3 of us.
Oh, because you're gonna give a rating
to
the 2?
Yeah, it's infinity.
The 2 together.
It's just, they're unrateable.
Right.
They're unrateable.
I don't even know what to say about this.
Right.
I want to say 2 more things that I just remembered. You were talking about where Sarek, Picard's helping him with the hand, the Vulcan salute, and in the commentary on the Blu-ray, they actually say that when they wrote it, they were afraid Rick Berman was going to say no, that's too much. Because Rick Berman was notorious for being
conservative,
unsentimental. He didn't want a lot of sentimentality, a lot of emotional, like high melodrama, which may explain why maybe Rick Berman doesn't work today because everything's melodramatic today.
Fucking part of it. That's like I can't believe that.
Right. But he was okay with it. He kind of looked at them and said, "Okay, we'll try it," but he was a little hesitant. And I did want to ask. Oh man, what was it? No, that's it.
All right, so we're gonna.
Vulcan salutes. Is this something that
Spock kind of does that?
Yeah, he does.
I don't remember
when
that.
he's
in
meditation.
Oh, okay.
So does Spock hold his hands kind of like that? He does in Star Trek 6. Actually, he does that when we first see him.
I don't remember that.
When we first see him,
I can't do that. I can only do it with one hand.
You can't do the.
I can do it with one hand, not with the other, so I can't do that.
All right, so we're gonna end part 1. Oh wait,
And I have one.
what's that?
Humber did allude to it earlier. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Humber alluded to it earlier. It's when you're describing how we got all of the big.
Oh man.
All of the big races.
But-
All the big wait.
Quite enough.
When we got all the big what? Like
All the big races.
We have all the Star Trek elements and races from the first series, but I don't think we've done quite enough justice to the Klingons yet. Did you? Unless you've already covered that.
Well, actually, we didn't talk about the Klingon captain of the ship that ferries.
That's true.
Data and Picard over. I think the reason I didn't think about it is, well, because these discussions, we're trying to like do them like whatever, but like I think for me ultimately, like he's just kind of like he's so acquiescent, like he doesn't really give much of a fight. I mean, like the one threatening thing he says to Picard is like, "Remember, my orders do not include a rescue mission," and that's it's like...
but he does get some of the best lines though. I mean, he sets up some of the best lines, because I love that scene where Picard walks in and he's like, "Here are your quarters, Klingon style." Bum, bum.
Yeah.
And then Picard's like, "Yes,
soft blankets.
no soft blankets for you," and Picard's like, "I prefer it that way."
I love that part.
That's one of the best parts of the episode.
Yeah.
all right,
That's true.
okay.
And then he goes to Data when he comes out. Remember the part? He's like, "Be careful, some Romulan wench doesn't lick the paint off your ears."
That's true.
Something like that. And so he gets some of the best lines.
It's true. I guess you're right.
And the actor he's if you're a fan of news radio, his name is Stephen Root, and he's one of the great character actors of our time. And he's the one on news radio that plays the station owner. The one who's that's who that is underneath the makeup.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And remind me to tell you who Pardek is in the next episode.
Okay. And then you were going to say something, Moni?
You're talking about the build-up that Picard got before meeting Spock. It was like the meeting of the two titans of the original series and the Next Generation. I think the Klingons were ultimately a vehicle for bringing out that part of Picard. It was the first moment that he had his moment with Sarek, but then they need to enlist the Klingon help and get a bird of prey.
Right, the gratitude scene, which is great.
And he has an exchange with the junior adjutants,
which is priceless.
It's all you're going to get is a gratitude, but if you don't, if it's not, and he very, very subtly and diplomatically says, if it's not Gowron that gets our gratitude, it will be somebody else. And then they get the bird of prey, and it's amazing.
Right. That's certainly the full Picard.
That is the full Picard.
Right there.
We're talking about how we get the full Picard in this episode for sure.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to mention before I move on, so there's this the only time that I think, you can correct me if you know of other instances where we have members of the crew putting on prosthetics to blend in with the local population.
Yes, there are other episodes where actually that happens quite often.
It actually happens in the Mintakian episode, which are the pre-industrial Vulcan type. Well, actually, but they look more like Romulans. They had like the ridges or whatever. And then there's also Riker, the episode with BB Newworth, who plays Fraser's wife, and it's the episode where Riker. It's called First Contact, and Riker's on a planet and he's stuck in a hospital. So he's disguised as other aliens too.
Whatever you. Go ahead.
It says it's a tradition stemming back from when
that's right,
Captain
Kirk.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Imposes a Romulan commander or subcommander.
That's right. I totally forgot.
And they use much less prosthetics.
Well, that's an interesting thing that I was gonna bring this up in our next discussion, but we can go ahead and touch on, since we're supposed to do two discussions to be proper. But anyways, I'll bring this up. Something to talk about. I guess we'll start the next episode off with this. Is like, how do you guys feel about the redone Romulans from the original series to the Next Generation? In the original series, they look just like Vulcans. There's no
Yeah.
other than the ears. There's no other, and the eyebrows. There's no other prosthetics or whatever or features. But now in Next Generation, and we've been
Right.
living with this for a while now.
Yeah, we
Romulans
have. I feel we may have discussed that.
Romulans have like a more pronounced forehead
Mhm.
than Vulcans do. Even though they're from the same people, they've somehow evolved a little differently over the last 2,000 years.
Right.
And more recently than that, if you think about it, it's in 80 years. If we're going to be like true to like visual canon as someone likes to be, we have to
That was a
assume
dig against
we
me,
have
by
to
the way.
assume that there's a reason why the Romulans look different from the original series to the Next Generation. We can't just say, oh, it's a redesign. We have to say something happened in between that time. So, it's a kind of a dilemma when you think about it.
Well, with regard to the Romulans,
Wait.
well, were you going to
Go
say
ahead.
something?
Say your point.
Oh, okay. So first of all, even within Vulcan, we have like tons of sub-variations. Like you have Vulcans with all different shades of skin. They look some look completely different from your prototypical like Spock and Sarek.
Right.
Yeah, 2,000 years on a different, completely separated on a completely different planet.
With different gravity and yeah.
But okay, but it's really only 80 years because in the original series, both Klingons and Vulcan and Romulans don't have any distinguishing features.
How many Romulans did we see in the original series? We saw a few from one ship.
We saw like 2, right?
Yeah.
You just saw 2, really.
I will say this, and we'll talk about it, but I guess we'll just talk about it right now. I will say this, even though I'm trying to make the opposite point. No one seems to mind that Spock doesn't have ridges when he's having a soup in the cafe later on. So it is perhaps possible that Romulans from Regna, or some other part of the continent, of the planet, don't have the ridges, or maybe it's like like some of us have Neanderthal genes and some of us have less of it. So it could be that.
That's basically my point. We don't know how many subvariants of Vulcan and Romulan there are. There could be Vulcans that look just like Romulans, and then there are.
Again, nothing on screen though to kind of support this, but still, okay. I say it's fun. All right, let's wrap up part 1, and then we'll all convene again. We'll have a little bathroom break or whatever, and we'll all convene again for a part 2 discussion.
Intermission.
Yay! All right, here we go. And could you guys do the live long and prosper? And we'll see you guys next time, right after this.